Hello, everyone, and welcome back to English with Liam and Olivia.
Yes, welcome. We are so genuinely happy you are here with us today.
This is the podcast where English feels real, warm, and part of your actual everyday life.
No pressure, no heavy lessons, just honest conversations that help you grow in a real and lasting way.
And today we have an episode that is going to feel like someone finally said out loud the thing you have been experiencing silently for years.
Yes, because today we're talking about something that virtually every English learner has experienced, every single one.
Something that is both frustrating and fascinating, and understanding it is going to change how you practice and how you feel about your progress.
So let us get into it. This one is going to be really eye-opening. So today, we're talking about something that happens inside your head when you think in English.
You are preparing for a conversation, or you're thinking about how to say something, and in your mind, it sounds wonderful.
The sentences are flowing, the words are exactly right, the tone is perfect, you sound confident and fluent and natural.
And then you open your mouth, and something different comes out.
Or nothing comes out at all. Or what comes out sounds nothing like the version that existed so beautifully in your head moments before.
And you stand there feeling confused and slightly defeated, wondering why the gap between your head and your mouth is so enormous.
And the honest answer is that there is a real and scientific reason for this gap, and understanding it is going to help you close it.
Not overnight, but genuinely, with specific practice and with the right understanding of what is actually happening in your brain.
We're going to look at 3 reasons why English sounds perfect in your head, but struggles to come out in the same way.
And for each reason, we are going to give you a real, practical approach that actually helps.
Because understanding is only half the work. The other half is knowing what to do differently.
Let us get into it. This one is going to be really eye-opening.
So today, we're talking about something that happens inside your head when you think in English.
You're preparing for a conversation or you're thinking about how to say something, and in your mind, it sounds wonderful.
The sentences are flowing, the words are exactly right, the tone is perfect, you sound confident and fluent and natural.
And then you open your mouth, and something different comes out.
Or nothing comes out at all. Or what comes out sounds nothing like the version that existed so beautifully in your head moments before.
And you stand there feeling confused and slightly defeated, wondering why the gap between your head and your mouth is so enormous.
And the honest answer is that there is a real and scientific reason for this gap, and understanding it is going to help you close it.
Not overnight, but genuinely, with specific practice and with the right understanding of what is actually happening in your brain.
We're going to look at 3 reasons why English sounds perfect in your head, but struggles to come out in the same way.
And for each reason, we are going to give you a real, practical approach that actually helps.
Because understanding is only half the work. The other half is knowing what to do differently.
Let us get into it. This one is going to be really eye-opening. Let us start with the first reason, the difference between passive and active language.
This is probably the most important concept in understanding why the gap exists, and it's one that almost no language class ever explains properly.
When you learn English, you build up 2 different kinds of knowledge in your brain.
Passive language is everything you understand, everything you can read and follow and recognize, words you know when you hear them, structures that make sense when you see them.
Active language is everything you can produce, everything you can say or write from memory without being prompted.
And here is the key truth. Your passive language is almost always much larger than your active language.
You probably understand thousands more words and structures than you can actually use when speaking.
And this gap is completely normal. It's the same in every language. Even native speakers have passive vocabulary that is larger than their active vocabulary.
But for English learners, the gap can be enormous because so much of language learning focuses on input, reading, listening, understanding.
And not nearly enough time is spent on output, actually producing language under real conditions, speaking, writing, using actively.
So when you think in English in your head, your passive language is available. Your brain can access a wide range of words and structures because recognizing is easier than producing.
But when you try to speak, you're asking your brain to switch from recognition mode to production mode, and that switch is where the difficulty lives.
Think about it this way. Reading a recipe and actually cooking the dish are two completely different skills.
You can read a recipe and understand every step. You can picture exactly how the dish should look. But the first time you cook it, something always goes differently than you imagined.
Because understanding a process and performing it are two completely different things, and language works the same way.
You can read an English sentence perfectly when you read it, but producing a similar sentence when you need it in a real conversation is a different and harder skill.
And the only way to close the gap between passive and active language is to practice active production deliberately and consistently.
That means speaking out loud even when you're alone, narrating your day in English, describing what you see around you.
It means writing sentences, keeping a journal in English, responding to things you read or hear in writing.
It means having real conversations where you have to produce language in real time, not just consume it.
Think about a real situation. You have been watching English films and series for months. Your listening has improved dramatically.
But when you try to speak, the words that sounded so natural in the film don't come out of your mouth the same way.
That's because watching is passive. The language went in, but it didn't get practiced going out.
The fix is to take what you consume and actively practice producing it. Repeat lines from films out loud. Describe the scene in your own words. Retell the story to someone else.
Or at work, you read emails in English all day and understand every one. But when it comes to writing your own response, you stare at the blank page.
Because reading and writing are different skills. Reading trains your passive knowledge. Writing requires active production.
The practice is to write short responses to emails even if you don't send them. Write a version, then improve it, then write it again from memory.
Every time you produce language actively, you're building that active vocabulary, one production at a time.
Now say it with us. Everyone listening, say this sentence out loud right now. Don't just read it, actually say it.
I am building my active English every time I speak out loud.
Say it again, out loud. I am building my active English every time I speak out loud.
Do you notice something? You just practiced active production. You moved the sentence from something you read to something you said.
That's the practice. Simple, consistent, repeated, every single day.
Now, let's look at the second reason, the pressure gap between thinking and speaking.
This one is about the conditions under which your brain operates when it's thinking versus when it's speaking.
When you think in English inside your head, there's no pressure. No one is waiting, no one is watching, no one is evaluating.
Your brain is relaxed, and relaxed brains have access to more resources, more vocabulary, more structures, more creativity.
But the moment you're in a real conversation, conditions change completely. Someone is waiting for your response.
You are aware of being observed, even if only by one friendly person. Your brain shifts into a kind of alert state.
And in that alert state, resources that were available a moment ago in the safety of your own mind become suddenly harder to reach.
It's like trying to remember a word when someone is staring at you waiting. The more you try to find it, the further away it seems.
But the moment you stop trying, the moment you relax and think about something else, the word appears effortlessly.
That's the pressure gap. The conditions of thinking and speaking are so different that the performance gap is almost inevitable until you've practiced under pressure enough times.
And the key phrase there is practiced under pressure, because the only way to reduce the gap is to expose yourself to the pressured conditions repeatedly.
Think about a professional athlete. They don't just practice their sport in comfortable, controlled conditions.
They practice under pressure. They simulate game conditions. They train with an audience. They rehearse difficult scenarios, so the performance under pressure starts to feel like the practice.
Language learning works the same way. If you only ever practice English alone in your room with no stakes, speaking in real situations will always feel like a different skill.
The fix is to gradually increase the pressure in your practice environment.
Start by speaking out loud alone, then record yourself and listen back.
Then speak to someone you trust with low stakes.
Then increase the challenge. Video calls, meetings, presentations, new people, higher stakes situations.
Each step up in pressure is uncomfortable, but each step up also builds your capacity to perform under that level of pressure.
Think about a real situation. You practice a speech in your bedroom and it goes perfectly.
You know every word. The flow is natural. You feel completely confident.
Then you stand in front of an actual audience and it's completely different. The pressure changed everything.
The answer is not to practice more in your bedroom. The answer is to practice in front of people, more and more people, until the presence of an audience stops being a new condition and starts being a familiar one.
Or in a personal situation, you practice what you want to say to someone important in a difficult conversation. In your head, it's clear and calm. But when you sit across from them and the emotion is real and they are looking at you, the words that were so clear become tangled.
Because emotional pressure is a form of performance pressure, and the only way to get better at navigating emotional conversations is to have them with compassion for yourself when they do not go perfectly.
And they will not always go perfectly. That is not a failure. That is the practice itself.
Say it with us now. Repeat this out loud.
I am getting better at speaking under pressure every time I try.
Say it again. I am getting better at speaking under pressure every time I try.
Every single conversation is practice, even the imperfect ones, especially the imperfect ones.
Because imperfect conversations under real pressure teach you more than perfect practice alone ever could.
Now, let us look at the third reason, the fluency illusion.
This one is perhaps the most interesting and the most surprising for many learners when they first hear it.
When you think in English in your head, you're not actually producing complete sentences the way you would need to if you were speaking.
Your inner voice in English is more like a sketch than a finished painting.
You think the idea, you think the direction, but the specific words and structures are often filled in loosely, approximately, not precisely.
And this approximate internal language feels fluent because your brain is very good at filling in gaps when you are the only audience.
But when you speak, you cannot be approximate. Every word has to actually exist. Every structure has to actually be formed. The listener cannot fill in the gaps for you.
And that precision requirement is where the fluency illusion breaks down.
The version in your head was a rough draft. When you speak, you need the final draft, and the final draft requires much more precise processing.
Think about this. You think, I want to tell my friend about my weekend. In your head, it flows. You have the whole story there.
But then you start speaking, and suddenly you need to choose past tenses. You need to decide exactly which word describes how you felt. You need to connect the sentences with the right linking words.
And all of those micro decisions that felt automatic in your head become conscious, effortful choices when you speak.
That is the fluency illusion. Your head gives you the impression of fluency, but fluency in the mind and fluency in the mouth are different levels of skill.
And the way to close this gap is to make your practice as precise as your actual speaking needs to be.
That means when you practice English in your head, don't just think in vague ideas and directions. Form the actual sentences. Say them completely. Every word, every structure.
When you narrate your day in English internally, say the complete sentence. I am walking to the station. I wonder if the train will be on time. I forgot my umbrella and it looks like rain.
Not just train or maybe rain, the full, precise sentence, because that precision is what speaking requires.
And when you practice before a difficult conversation, don't just think about what you want to say generally. Say the actual words out loud multiple times until they feel familiar in your mouth.
Because your mouth needs to practice them, not just your mind.
Think about a job interview. You think about what to say about your experience. In your head, it's clear and organized.
But when you sit down and the interviewer asks, your mouth has never actually said those sentences before, and the unfamiliarity of the sounds and structures makes them come out differently.
The fix is to say those sentences out loud many times before the interview. Not just think them, say them, until your mouth knows them as well as your mind does.
Or in a relationship conversation, you've been wanting to tell someone important to you how much they mean to you. Maybe a parent, or a very close friend, or a partner.
You thought about it for days. In your mind, they're beautiful and clear and exactly right.
You sit with the person, you start to speak, and what comes out is smaller than what was in your head, simpler, less eloquent.
And you feel a little disappointed, like you failed to give them the words they deserved.
But here's the truth. The words that came out were still real, still from you, still felt.
And the person in front of you heard the feeling underneath the words, even if the words were simpler than you planned.
Because feeling reaches people more reliably than eloquence does, always.
And next time, say what you want to say out loud before you say it to them. Practice the actual sentences. Give your mouth the gift of familiarity with those words.
And next time, they'll come out a little closer to the version in your head, because your mouth will have practiced them.
That's how the gap closes. Practice. Real spoken practice. One sentence at a time.
Now let's talk about some common mistakes learners make around this gap between thinking and speaking.
The first mistake, waiting until you feel ready to speak before actually speaking.
So many learners say, I'll start speaking when my English is better, or when I feel more confident, or when I know enough vocabulary.
But that day never comes, because the feeling of readiness doesn't come before speaking, it comes from speaking.
You won't feel ready and then start speaking. You'll start speaking and then start feeling ready. The order matters.
The discomfort of speaking before you feel ready is the exact discomfort that builds the readiness. You can't skip it. You have to go through it.
Think about swimming. No one learns to swim by waiting to feel comfortable in water. They get in the water and become comfortable through the experience of being in it.
English is the same. Get in the conversation. The comfort comes from the conversation, not before it.
The second mistake, practicing only in conditions that feel safe and comfortable.
Safe practice is important. It's where you build the foundations, but safe practice alone is not enough.
If you only practice in conditions with zero pressure, speaking in real conditions will always feel like something different, something harder, something you're not prepared for.
You need to progressively add challenge, add a small audience, add time pressure, add a topic you haven't prepared, add stakes that matter.
Not all at once, gradually, but deliberately.
Because real English conversations happen under real conditions, and the only way to prepare for real conditions is to practice under them.
The third mistake, judging your English ability by how you sound in your head rather than how you sound out loud.
This is a very common and very discouraging mistake. Learners hear the beautiful English in their head. They compare it to the imperfect English that comes out of their mouth.
And they conclude that they are not as good as they should be, that they are failing, that progress is not happening.
But that comparison is unfair because the English in your head and the English out of your mouth are operating under completely different conditions.
A fairer comparison is how your spoken English sounds today compared to how it sounded 6 months ago.
Or how you handle pressure situations now compared to how you handled them when you first started speaking.
That comparison shows real progress, because real progress is in the direction of closing the gap, not in the gap disappearing overnight.
The gap closes slowly, sentence by sentence, conversation by conversation, brave moment by brave moment.
Now, let's bring everything into real daily life situations together.
Imagine you have a work meeting coming up where you'll need to present your ideas to the team.
You think through what you want to say at home the night before. In your head, it's clear and well organized. You feel prepared.
Old approach. You feel ready in your head and go into the meeting trusting that it will come out the same way. It doesn't. The pressure changes everything. You stumble, you lose words.
New approach. You say your presentation out loud at home, multiple times. Your mouth practices the actual sentences.
You record yourself on your phone and listen back. You notice where you hesitate, where the words get tangled, and you practice those specific parts more.
You ask a friend or partner to listen to a short version. The pressure of a small audience prepares you for the pressure of a larger one.
The next day, you walk into the meeting and your mouth already knows these sentences. They've been said out loud before. They feel familiar. They come out so much more smoothly.
Not perfectly, but so much more smoothly. And that smoothness is the result of active spoken practice, not just thinking it through in your head.
Now, let's try a personal and emotional situation.
You've been wanting to tell someone important to you how much they mean to you, maybe a parent or a very close friend or a partner.
In your head, the words are beautiful. You've been composing them for days. They feel perfect and true and exactly right.
You sit with the person, you start to speak, and what comes out is smaller than what was in your head, simpler, less eloquent.
And you feel a little disappointed, like you failed to give them the words they deserved.
But here's the truth. The words that came out were still real, still from you, still felt.
And the person in front of you heard the feeling underneath the words, even if the words were simpler than you planned.
Because feeling reaches people more reliably than eloquence does, always.
And next time, say what you want to say out loud before you say it to them. Practice the actual sentences. Give your mouth the gift of familiarity with those words.
And next time, they will come out a little closer to the version in your head because your mouth will have practiced them.
That is how the gap closes. Practice, real spoken practice, one sentence at a time. Let us try one more situation, a social moment where English is required unexpectedly.
You are at an event or a gathering. Someone approaches you and starts a conversation in English. You are not prepared for it.
And suddenly, the English that flows so easily in your head when you were preparing is nowhere to be found.
The words feel distant. The structures feel heavy. The confidence that existed 5 minutes ago has disappeared.
Old experience. You stumble, you apologize for your English, you give short answers, you disengage as quickly as possible.
New experience. You take a breath. You remember that your brain is in alert mode and needs a moment.
You say, let me think about that for a second. You use a bridge phrase to buy yourself time.
You start with what you know. Simple sentences, real content, genuine engagement.
And something interesting happens. As the conversation continues and the initial pressure eases, the English starts to flow more naturally.
Because your brain relaxes, the threat level drops, and the resources that were temporarily out of reach come back.
Not perfectly, not like the version in your head, but genuinely, humanly, progressively.
And that progression is the real measure of your English, not the gap between your head and your mouth, but the journey of closing that gap one conversation at a time.
Say it with us one final time. Everyone listening, say this out loud right now. My English sounds better every time I practice speaking out loud. The gap is closing, and I am proud of that.
Say it again. My English sounds better every time I practice speaking out loud. The gap is closing, and I am proud of that.
That sentence is true. For every single person listening, the gap is real, and the gap is closing.
Hold on to that truth on the difficult days. It is always true, even when it doesn't feel like it.
Let us bring everything together now.
The first reason English sounds perfect in your head is the gap between passive and active language. You understand more than you can produce. And the fix is deliberate active practice, speaking and writing, producing language, not just consuming it.
The second reason is the pressure gap. Thinking happens in comfortable conditions, speaking happens under pressure, and the fix is to gradually practice under increasingly pressured conditions, small audiences, real conversations, higher stakes situations over time.
The third reason is the fluency illusion. Your internal English is a sketch. Speaking requires a finished painting, and the fix is to make your internal practice more precise. Form full sentences in your head and out loud. Give your mouth the chance to practice what your mind has planned.
And remember the mistakes to avoid. Don't wait until you feel ready. Start speaking and let the readiness follow.
Do not only practice in safe, comfortable conditions. Gradually add pressure.
And don't judge your English by the gap between your head and your mouth. Judge it by how your spoken English is growing over time.
The gap between your head and your voice is not a flaw. It's a stage, a temporary stage that every language learner passes through on the way to fluency.
And you are passing through it right now, which means you're exactly where you're supposed to be.
We are so genuinely proud of every person listening to this, because understanding why something is hard is the first step to making it easier.
And now you understand, and now you have the tools, and now you can practice differently.
Keep going. The version of you that speaks English the way it sounds in your head is real, and you're building toward them every single day.
If today's episode explained something you've been experiencing but couldn't quite name, please give it a like right now.
And if you're not yet subscribed, please join our family today. A brand new episode is ready for you every single day.
Thank you so much for being here with us. Every single listen truly means the world to us.
This has been English with Liam and Olivia. Simple English, real conversations, daily practice.
Take care of yourselves, keep speaking, keep practicing, keep closing the gap. We'll see you in the very next episode.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.